Welcome to Venezuela Insider, the only place in Venezuela for expats, digital nomads, entrepreneurs, investors, travelers, and related internationals. For more information, venezuelainsider.com.
Today we're talking about the migration of Venezuelans to the world. And we're going to review some numbers, some data, and some nuances about the Venezuelan migration. To doing so, I'm going to use for this particular video the data that I got from Statista, which is a very trustworthy statistic source. It's from 2020, 2021, so it hasn't been yet fully updated. I'm gonna give also my opinion of other data that I'm managing right now. So it's a little bit of discrepancies on that, but it can, on general terms, can give you a nice picture of what's happening. So we're gonna start. So according to some data, the Venezuelan diaspora is a little bit over 7 million people, and this thing, reached critical mass on, let's say, 2012, 2013, and on 2017 would just spike up, and after that, let's say, starting COVID, slow it down, we still have people leaving Venezuela, although the trend is on a rate that is lower, very lower, much lower compared to the numbers that we had a couple of years ago when 2 million lived in just 1 year. So we have over 7 million people that already left the country, and the migration rate still low, and according to some estimates might be negative. So more people are being repatriated to Venezuela, so they are returning Venezuelans compared to the people that are living right now. On that number, the number that I'm managing right now is the lowest estimate is between 100,000 and 250,000 people that are already repatriated to Venezuela. And the biggest on the higher end on this estimation could be around 1 million people that already came back to Venezuela. I'm talking the biggest number, but it could be a couple thousand people that return to Venezuela. Yeah, could be the safe number that we're managing right now. So now let's review the countries where Venezuelans migrate. So number one, we have Colombia. According to the Statista on 2020, late 2020, at the end of 2020, is 1.8 million Venezuelans. According to some data that I'm searching right now, it could be over 2 million, but let's stay with 1.8, it's congruent. And the other thing you have to remember that many people, many migrants, they fled the country throughout Colombia, regardless of their final destination. Some people just cross the border. It was complicated to cross the border back then. Right now it's quite easy. There are direct flights to Colombia, and also it's a fully open border between Venezuela and Colombia. It's not like a few years ago where you have to go these unofficial paths throughout the Venezuelan and Colombian border. Number two is Peru, and according to Statista, is 941,000 Venezuelans. That number shocked me. My estimate was between 700 and 800,000 Venezuelans, is close to 1 million. Although the migration to Peru started between 2016, 2017, it was just like that. It just, exponentially grew because it was easy back then for Venezuelans to migrate towards Peru. Although many Venezuelans are, let's say, discontent with the situation on Peru. Actually, according to some migrants, many migrants, Peru is the place that treat them the worst. And of course, also the poorest Venezuelans were the ones that migrated to Peru as well. So there is this xenophobic classism thing against Venezuelans. And of course, and also some Venezuelans were, committed some crimes and such. most people are salt-of-the-earth people, and they were just to work. Anyways, it's a very negative sentiment on Peru amongst Venezuelans, and many of them decided to migrate to a third country. Number three is Chile. Chile has a migration of Venezuelans of over half a million people, 523,000 according to Statista. That's congruent with my number of over 400,000. And what happened with Chile is Chile, I love the Chilean migration system because what Chileans did, the Chilean migration system did, is attract people that already had degrees and advanced degrees in order to come to Chile. So they didn't ask for money, they asked for education. And remember, many Venezuelans, many adult Venezuelans have a great education and great professional preparation. And some of them found opportunities in Chile, and unfortunately, some of them they didn't. And right now are migrating to third countries, let's say Europe, Western Europe, or the United States itself, or just flat out came back to Venezuela. Actually, personally, I know a couple of such cases. Number four, we have the United States with over 500,000 people, 505,000 to be accurate, according to Statista, to be higher this number by now. Now, it's funny how the migration to the United States worked. Actually, when the migration just started, there were Venezuelans from, let's say, high middle class that migrated over there. They already had the tourist visa and they wanted an upgrade on standard of living. You cannot blame them. But also they were kind of brainwashed by this Disney narrative, Hollywood narrative, that you see these beautiful suburban houses and such, and teenage movies and teenage TV series, Hollywood and Netflix and all that, and they want that life. Well, Netflix wasn't a thing back then. Well, they wanted that, and they arrive either just migrants or tourists. They expire the tourist visas, or students that they want to overstay their time on the United States after their studies culminated. And that's basically the people that you have, let's say 10, 15 years ago on the United States from Venezuela. After that, what happened is they started migrating. And just a few years ago, let's say 2018, 2019, the border Venezuelans starting to enter the United States throughout the Mexican border. And of course doing, the typical, crossing the Rio Grande, or crossing Arizona, or crossing Southern California, the typical migration situation. So the inflow of Venezuelans towards the United States has changed a lot. And also we're seeing a lot that several hundred thousands, let's say a few 100,000 Venezuelans that migrated to poorer countries compared to the United States, like Peru, Chile, Colombia, other Latin American nations. They said, you know what, I don't want to live in Latin America anymore because it has basically the same issues that Venezuela has, maybe not as on the same degree, but still has the same issues. So I'm just gonna cut my losses short and go straight to the States. So that's kind of a review on how the migration towards the United States works. Number five is Ecuador, with 388,000 Venezuelans over there. My estimates was around 400,000. And what happened is Ecuador is relatively close to Venezuela, and it was kind of easy to migrate to Ecuador on the mid 2010s. I'm talking 2014, 2015, 2016. And after that, Ecuador just slashed and make it harder for Venezuelan migrants to arrive to Ecuador. And actually, if you are Venezuelan, you require a tourist visa in order to visit Ecuador. So back then, it was a critical mass of Venezuelans that migrated to Ecuador, although after, let's say, 2018, just stopped for two reasons. One, because it was harder to migrate to Ecuador, And number two is because the Venezuelans were already migrated over there. They send back, the intel, the news, the information about Ecuador, and Ecuador is, yeah, it's just not a, I mean, no disrespect to Ecuadorians, some Ecuadorian friends, although, yeah, it's not a big deal to go to Ecuador, Quito, we have things better than Quito and Guayaquil here in Venezuela. The economy is slightly better than the Venezuelans, of course, don't I'm not gonna argue on that, but if you're not getting, a lot for your migration on Ecuador anyways, and actually many of the repatriation cases are from Ecuador. So Ecuador is not hot amongst the Venezuelans. Number six, we have Spain with 325,000 Venezuelans according to Statista. And actually, the number I thought was going to be over 400,000. And here's the deal. Two main reasons why Venezuelans migrate to Spain. First, we have a bunch of European descendants, Spaniard descendants, and they just want to go to the old land, to the motherland. One thing. Second thing, just like the United States, Hollywood and such, and social media, many Venezuelans see Spain as this big, beautiful first world country, and like many people in the offshore world says, at the end of the day, Spain is just a legacy brand country. So what happened at the end is still many people they were desensitized to still migrating to Spain, or they just migrated to Spain to some other country on the European Union. However, still kind of hot. Still, actually, the few migrations that I'm hearing right now on 2023 are to Spain just because the European lifestyle and such. Not my canteen, not my cup of tea. However, still kind of hot among Venezuelan migrants. Number seven is Brazil, and Brazil, according to Statista, is 248,000 people. And actually, the number I thought is going to be way lower. My number was less than 100,000 people because there is not much, let's say, cultural affinity between Venezuelans and Brazilians. We get along well, but by one hand, you have the language barrier. We speak Spanish, I'm sorry, and they speak Portuguese. And Venezuelans are not that great with Portuguese. And the other thing is that Brazil is very big, so it's like a continent by itself, so it's very hard to move around Brazil. So if you visit Brazil, you already know that. And the other thing is, I'll take a guess with this number from Statista, and is that I'm sure many people use it as a transit point, as a transit hub, instead of making Brazil the final destination. Also, I know people that just come and go to Brazil because it's just on the southern Venezuelan border. So they work a few months and came back and so maybe that's why the number is so, bulky compared to my original estimate. Still, I'll say 200,000 is a fair number to mention to Brazil. Number 8, we have Argentina with 178,000 people according to Estadista by 2020. That's very congruent to the number that I had, although that number can be shrinking pretty fast. Here's why. The migration to Argentina actually started by late 2017. By 2017 was just a couple thousand people, a couple thousand Venezuelans in Argentina, and just in a couple years like that, went to almost 100,000 people. For Argentina, for Venezuela, Argentina for Venezuelans is, well, has Buenos Aires is a beautiful city, it's the European vibe, they speak the same language, and it's relatively easy to migrate to Argentina being a Venezuelan. And for one hand, and it also, Venezuela has what Argentina lacks. There is a well-prepared adult population. In Venezuelans like to prepare, go to college and such, and get good degrees, STEM degrees, medicine, engineering, accounting, you name it. And believe me, I know Argentinians, they don't like to go to school. They just Argentinians are kind of lazy, I have to say it. So Please, I hope I don't offend any Argentinian. Also, although I know many Argentinians are they're a blast, they're cool to hang out with. Well, you know the point. Well, what happened is Argentina is having their own economical crisis by its own, and Argentina is always every 5 years or so with an economic crisis all the time. Venezuelans already picked up that the problems that Argentina have are structurally the same problems that Venezuela had on the previous years and kind of still has. So they are fleeing the country right away. So I will say this number of 178,000 people is going to shrink pretty fast because I'm already seeing cases of Venezuelans coming back from Argentina or just going elsewhere. Number 9 is Panama, and with almost 120,000 Venezuelan migrants. And it's funny thing, the case of Panama, just a few years ago by 2013, 2014, Panama was like the number 3 or number 4 on this list of hubs for Venezuelan migrants. It was relatively easy to migrate to Panama a few years ago by Venezuelans. And the other thing is that the people who migrated on the first place were high middle class Venezuelans that at the moment they have some assets to sell or some savings on USDs and such on hard currency. And they were able to migrate to Panama, but at the end, Panama is just a shell country, I have to say it. I love Panama, by the way, been many times. However, Panama, the economy of Panama is just a shell. It's quote unquote a money laundry place. And you see these beautiful buildings on Balboa Street. However, it's a poor country with a facade of a rich country. It's kind of bizarre. Panama is kind of bizarre. It's hard to explain. Uh, no hate towards Panamanians, although also there is a lot of xenophobic cases on Panama. Many Panamanians had mistreated Venezuelan citizens. Of course, some Venezuelan citizens deserve it as well. But however, most people that went to Panama, they went to work hard and maybe invest if they have a little bit of cash. However, Panama is not as great as you look on a first glance. And the other thing is that the Panama system is kind of they're like mercenaries. They want money and that's it. So when wealthy Venezuelans went to Panama with some cash, they were treated pretty well. And then when arrived, let's say a little bit poorer ones, no, we don't want Venezuelans at all. This kind of issue. Still, Panama with over 100,000 people is congruent with my estimate. So, very good. Bye. Number 10 is Mexico with around 70,000 Venezuelan migrants. Although Mexico wasn't the biggest migration hub for Venezuelans, what happened is first they want to go, of course, to the United States through the Mexican border by one hand. The second thing is also that Mexico has a decent cost of living until, just a few years ago for Venezuelans, and maybe you can get some opportunities, and also Mexican people are great, of course. However, the Mexican authorities are xenophobic. Mexican authorities are xenophobic towards everyone, and they are very racist. They want the first world, Europeans and such, and Americans, and on the detriment for third world nations like Guatemala and Salvador, and of course Venezuelans now. And what happened is during just a short time span, the Venezuelan population over there grew, but just stuck on these 70,000 migrants right now. So that's the story of Mexico. Number 11, we have Italy with 59,000 people, congruent with my estimate. We have a lot of Italian descendant people here that migrated to Italy. Of course, Italy doesn't have a great economic situation, even for not only for European standards, but also by Latin American standards as well, in some cases, of course. And some Venezuelans took shots over there, and some of them, they already got tired. I know a few Venezuelans living in Italy and such. But just, actually most people they don't see a big deal on Italy, but still 59,000 according to the studies. So I'm gonna do a rapid fire to the rest. Number 12, we have the DR, Dominican Republic, with 34,000 people. Same history that most places. There was a big critical mass of Venezuelan migrants, 34,000 according to Estadista. And after that, they required tourist visas and such, and xenophobic. And remember, Dominican Republic is not a developed economy and such. There's a lot of xenophobic, a lot of stupidity to the authorities and also to the Dominicans itself, and of course the Venezuelan migrants on Dominican Republic itself. Same thing with Costa Rica, 28,000 people on number 13. Portugal, number 14, is 27,000. I thought it was going to be around 50,000 because we have a bunch of Venezuelan descendant from Portuguese. Number 16, we have Canada with 22,000. I thought it was going to be close to 50,000. So it's going to be more, just 22,000. Still, Canada is not as much populated. Number 20, we have Germany with 10,000 Venezuelans. It's going to be a little bit higher, 20, 30,000, just 10,000 according to Statista, pretty good. And other places are Guyana, which is very close here in South America. The ABC Islands, Aruba, Curacao, they have, let's say, around between 10 and 50,000 each, let's say 25,000 within the three ABC Islands. Uruguay, a little bit over 10,000. The UK, around 10,000 Venezuelans. Australia, around 10,000, a little bit less of that. France, a little bit less of 10,000. And Bolivia, with around 5,000 people. So the basic dynamic is that first the migrants were middle class people. They went, with this Disney Hollywood idea to the United States and Western Europe and Australia and the UK and New Zealand and such. And after that, when things got really hard, they went to other places in Latin America, first to Panama, and then to places like Chile, to Colombia because it's the closest, Peru because it's relatively close, and Argentina because it's still on the continent, easy to migrate and such. And of course, there is a bunch of other countries that you might find Venezuelans. Like, for instance, I heard Tanzania, I heard Indonesia, I heard the Baltics, I heard the Balkans, I heard Northern Africa. We have people in the Gulf region, United Arab Emirates and Qatar and Egypt and such. We have Venezuelans all over the place, and dynamics have changed time to time, depending on the political and economic situation on any given country where Venezuelans are in. So I hope with this video that I paint a clear picture about the Venezuelan diaspora.
Thank you for watching Venezuela Insider. Please like, share, and subscribe. Follow us on social media. If you want to work with us, venezuelainsider.com. Thanks again and have a nice day.